Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all stripes and varieties, I'm here with Brother Ed Lattimore. For those of you who don't know, who are new to the channel, Ed is a good buddy of mine. We approach fighting differently. I train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and grappler. Ed is a world-class boxer. But we have a lot in common in that we talk about world travel and a few other things. And Ed, I wanted to talk to you about this because I'm in an awkward situation. I got a little frustrated, but as I rapidly approach maturity, I learned to calm down. And I didn't just chew this dude's face off. And I wanted to, let me do this real quick. Before I even get going, I'm gonna give everybody Ed's Twitter, because Ed has this amazing Twitter account that everybody should definitely check out. He says a lot of interesting things. He says a lot of harsh truths that a lot of people don't like, but a lot of people respect. And it's helped him grow as who he is without compromising, some of the hard truths that he's learned through life. And he's real funny. I
try to mix it up because you can't always hit them with the hard shit. Sometimes you gotta pull back and give them the jabs, man. They can't all be haymakers.
They can't all be haymakers. What is it? Mary Poppins, A Spoonful of Sugar.
There you go.
That was a good movie. I might have to download that. That was a good movie.
The newer or the older? I feel like they made a remake with I can't even remember.
The new one, I don't think the new one made any traction. The old one,
yes,
with Andrews, was really, really good. That's like one of those classic children's tales. But that's neither here nor there. While I pull up your Twitter account, I got my internet going. I think my internet is a little slow. I've got a couple things going in the background because I'm always running and gunning. Let me tell you what the conversation was like, because this guy is in a great position in life. He's kind of where we are. He has worked himself into a position where he is financially and professionally able to live anywhere in the world, earn a decent income, and he wants to come to Brazil. Hey, boa noite, amigo. Como vai? And he wants to come to Brazil. And we're talking about some of the things he would have to do. For those who don't know, I do expat relocation services, and I help people with getting to Brazil legally. Now, during the course of the conversation, I said, well, you seem kind of apprehensive. Can you tell me what's going on that's making you, I don't know, you just seem kind of off. Are you all right? He said, well, there's one thing that's really bothering me. I said, well, what's that? He said, well, this whole Portuguese language thing. Yeah. He said, now I'll tell you why people aren't afraid to learn Spanish. Because if you're in the United States, learning Spanish is easy because we speak Spanish without even knowing it in the US. But he flat out told me he was afraid of how hard it was going to be to have to do this whole Portuguese thing. He asked the question that really upset me. Really upset me. He said,
yeah.
He said, is it hard to learn?
Huh.
And I'm going to tell you why it bothers me. It bothers me because is it hard to learn? By the way, here's Ed's Twitter. I want everybody to stop and follow Ed on Twitter. What are you doing to your poor keyboard that's coming across the speaker so loud?
Oh, I was just plugging my headset in. And so because the mic is right next to the port, you probably picked up some of the interference.
Gotcha.
But now we're good. I just wanted to make sure my headphones wouldn't die.
Yeah, I want everybody to follow Ed on Twitter. So let me boa noite, querida. Let me tell you why that bothers me.
I'm laughing. I'm laughing because I heard you say boa noite, and the Portuguese that I learned in Europe, that noite, that's like a giveaway that you are not a continental Portuguese speaker, which is somewhat relevant to this conversation. Yeah. But
because you spent time, if I'm not mistaken, in the continent of Europe, in the country of Portugal, whereas I live in Brazil.
Yeah. So
Right.
like the phrase "boa noite" means the same thing, but you say "boa noite," we say "boa noite." Very slight difference, and like and it's one of those things that if you don't know Portuguese, you wouldn't even hear. But when
Different.
you do, you hear it, and it's like you are not
Well, what's
Portuguese or
interesting
you are
is
not Brazilian.
as I'm learning Portuguese, and I tell people I'm not dead fluent, but as I learn Portuguese, I'm also at a point where I can listen to people and I can tell if they're from one of the major cities because the way they roll and pronounce their language is different in certain places. Brother BK from the Rocky always reminding, look, like, share, subscribe, and comment because this channel has grown tremendously. And I'm so proud that so many people have been enjoying all the bullshit that I speak. I mean, really stupid things sometimes. And apparently there's a couple nuggets of gold in all the silt. Isso. Differente sotaque, the accent. Flam D nice. Listen, you and I need to be sitting down in front of each other, having some freshly squeezed juice together, brother. So I'm going to leave this up. So let me tell you why it upset me that he asked me. He said, is it hard to learn? The part that gets my underwear in a bunch is, why does it matter? When people ask me, is Portuguese hard to learn? I say, I don't know. I have no idea if it's hard to learn. When I decided I wanted to live in Brazil, I decided I was going to have to learn Portuguese. That was it. You want to live in Brazil, you learn Portuguese. You want to be a boxer, you're going to get punched in the face. Like, there's no way to be a boxer and not get hit. And it bothered me because this man has done things more difficult than learn Portuguese. He's university educated, a man who, like myself, did the whole corporate whore before entrepreneur, as I like to call it. He worked for the man for a while, then broke off, and then he broke off and did himself. And it bothers me because I can't understand why is it hard a factor. I can't understand why. Like, let's take this through a macro lens. When did learning anything necessary to succeed in life have to also fall in the category of easy? When did that happen?
Right. That's one of the things that I quite literally, it's probably my second to last post on IG because I take some screenshots from my Twitter and post it over there on my Instagram. But that post, it was like, because my birthday was at this point 2 weeks ago, I think. I said the 4 lessons from 36 years of life, and I think the very first, no, the second one was the difficulty of a task is irrelevant if it's vital to your success. And that's such a foreign concept for people to work with and get their head around, that when you, and it shouldn't be, first of all, I don't, once you kind of decide where you go, okay, here are the steps. And at that point, the difficulty of it should evaporate. But what I think people are doing is they're choosing the outcome and making it dependent on the process. So you can only go as far as you're willing to, be uncomfortable. Now, if there's like that point where you're like, okay, it doesn't matter how uncomfortable I'll be, so you can go very far. But a lot of people are thinking, oh man, it's getting a little hard, it's getting a little difficult. Is it really worth it? If you want it, it's worth it. Like to me, it's a very binary thing. To a lot of people, it's a gradient. Instead of going, is it worth it or is it not? They go, how worth it is it? And for this guy to be like, I want to go to Brazil, and one of the necessary conditions is that you got to learn Portuguese. At that point, your mind should just be like, I'm done. Like it's got to be like, this is what I have to do. And so that's it. It wouldn't matter. Like you said with the boxing, people message me all the time, like, what can I do to avoid brain damage? I'm like, I'll not box, motherfucker. Like that's pretty much that's pretty much it. There's no guarantee you're gonna die. People have died. I mean, that's part of the game. So people try to cheat the game, man. I don't know. I don't think they try to cheat the game, but they really would like to find some cheat codes to the game.
No, they're trying to cheat the game. They're trying to cheat the game. They're trying to cheat the game. When I hear a man ask, is it hard? I immediately think less of him. And I say this in a very old world, alpha male sense of the word. When I hear a man
I feel you. I'm the same way.
when I hear a man ask, is it hard? I immediately think less of him. Immediately. And I don't understand why we went through all these other things. For example, like I said, look, I'm going to show people this too. Like I said, I do expat relocation services, right? The process through which this gentleman has gone with me to make sure we get all his paperwork in order is not easy. I tell people all the time, they ask, well, is it easy to do the things that we need to do to get our pay? No, it's not. And he didn't flinch. He did not flinch. And for the record, anyone who wants to see me professionally, I suggest add me on LinkedIn. And I tell people this all the time. Don't look at my resume first. My resume is pretty and it's shiny and it's got all kinds of, great references on it. But that's where you need to start. I tell people all the time to go all the way down. And the first thing you look at are my references. Don't do business with anyone, especially on an international money scale, that can't give you quality references as to who they are. These are all people who are willing to say, yes, YusefWateef is who he claims to be. Yes, you should pay this man. Yes, he's legitimate. And they say it under their professional names. I'm going to go ahead and link that here in the comments too and say, add me on LinkedIn. There we go. Oh, here we go. See, I'm also at a point where now, because I have so many people in Brazil that are getting through to my channel and other things, I'm starting to get pressure. Like, are you going to start doing videos? I'm like, this is going to be hard, but I'm going to do it because it's hard. I'm going to have to invite all my Brazilian buddies, and we are going to have to do a painful half an hour. And the sad part is, and I tell people, this is why I know I'm not fluent, of course, I want to have an hour conversation, but I know the hour-long conversation we have in Portuguese is not going to be on the same level that I have with, say, someone like you.
Right.
It's going to be a very simple conversation.
I don't, I think you're not giving yourself enough credit. And here's why I say that, right? You've been down there now for what, 4 years longer? Or
I think 5, maybe. I don't know, 5 or 6. I just
four or 5, right? Absorbing it all around, studying intensively. I guarantee the conversation is going to be because I don't know Spanish nearly as well as you know Portuguese. I'm almost positive about that, but I know Spanish well enough to where I can have casual conversations with people in Mexico about a variety of things. Now we can't go too deep, but we can go deep enough to where like I'm not going to say anything foolish, and I can give my opinion and stuff, and talk about the news or whatever, right? Whatever they want to discuss. And that's from the way I've done it, which is kind of immersive. I'll call it like semi-immersive, in like LA and via the screen with people in the country, picking up the language and visiting occasionally. So I know, I think you'll surprise yourself by how well you can do it because the structure, and I know that because I know the structure of Spanish and Portuguese are identical. The difference is the sound that the sounds you have to make and hear and distinguish are a bit of a nightmare, but you get used to it. Well, you've gotten used to it, so I don't have to tell you. Shoot.
Yeah. Well, I did surprise myself because I go to the barber shop to get a straight edge to get my mustache correct. And a guy, now here's the interesting thing, that barbershops are barbershops all over the world. I go to the barbershop and I'm in the chair and I'm, he's all lathered me up and guy walks in with a bag and the guy walked in with the same look on his face every man who's ever tried to sell anything in a barbershop has. The dude walked in and he said, hey, I got some things. I've got this silver chain. Barber looked at him. He picked it up. He said, dude, this is made out of iron. And he just threw it at him. I had to say, oh, a new player has joined the battlefield. Coach, legendary Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion, DJ Jack.
How you doing? How you guys doing?
What's up, man?
Face look like you're in witness protection.
Man, it feels like I'm in witness protection in this hotel in this quarantine right now. It's exactly.
Oh, we just brought some beauty and Hey, check out the party in here tonight.
Right now. Exactly.
We just brought some race. Check out the party in here tonight.
Right now.
Crazy.
Exactly.
We just brought some race. Check out the party in here tonight.
Echo.
Right now.
I need to put my headphones.
Who is echoing? Who was giving me all that echo?
Not me. I'm unmuted.
Okay, we back.
I
That
just
was I don't know what happened,
Is it
but
mine?
we're back. So DJ,
I
you were
think it's the
saying
internet.
that sometimes the internet does things. But DJ, you were saying that you're in quarantine right now. Where are you and why are you in quarantine? Let me back up. Tell them who you are, DJ.
So right now I'm in Singapore. I'm in Singapore for some fights. This for the One Championships, coaching a couple of my students, and then I'm flying back to Thailand in a few days, and then I have 2 whole weeks to do the quarantine in Thailand once I'm there to make sure everybody's COVID free. They stick the swab all the way up our noses a few times, and then after the 2 weeks we're good. We're good to go.
I want everybody to follow Coach DJ Jackson on Instagram. Follow this man. He's got some big things coming up.
Oh yes, sir.
Coach DJ Jackson has a huge following.
We have one of our top fighters fighting. Mark Abelardo fights on the 5th.
So where are we? Oh, hold on. I got to close the window. Hold on. I just had a evening bug fly in because I've got these bright lights on. So let's do this. Alyssa, you know what to do. You've been here before. Tell them who you are.
Hi. Okay, I don't know if this is in real time still because I'm getting mad echo. I'm Elisa Sanders, and I guess oh no. Are you guys getting feedback?
No, I hear you just fine.
I hear you just fine too.
For some reason, I'm hearing myself back like about 5 seconds after. Okay.
Uh-oh, but I think you're the guilty party. I think it was you that was giving us all that feedback earlier.
You know what? Let me go off and come back on because
Ooh, okay. Well,
okay, I'm gonna go off and hop back on.
Okay. So DJ, what we were talking about was there's a guy who we were talking about things that are easy and things that are hard. And good evening, brother BMT. We were talking about things that are easy and things that are hard because I have a potential client coming to Brazil, and he asked, we go through all these things that are difficult for him to go through with his paperwork through my company. And then he said, but I'm kind of worried about learning Portuguese. And I said, what do you mean? And he asked me a question that really made me angry. He said, is it hard? And I said, why does it matter if it's hard? When did hard have anything to do with success? Thanks, BMT.
Yeah, it's kind of like what people always say: nothing that comes easy is worth it.
Thank you. And I don't understand why someone who has already accomplished some of the things that he has is talking to me about why is it hard to do? Because if it wasn't hard to do, you wouldn't get so many accolades for doing it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We represent several different disciplines. Ed Lattimore, an accomplished boxer, as well as phenomenal author. He's a great social media person. DJ Jackson, world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion multiple times over and coach. Alyssa Sanders, world-class musician. Actually, this is a great time for you to pop in and give everybody the who you are, dear sister.
Okay. I'm Alyssa Sanders, and I'm a singer and a writer. I've been here in Brazil since 96, living since 96, visited for the first time in 93. I do speak Portuguese fluently. And I did learn it mostly being here. So when I saw that this was the topic for the day, I was like, oh, I want to hop on this one. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. I live in Salvador. I lived in Sao Paulo for 14 years. I've been in Salvador for about 10 years. Started off here, went to Sao Paulo, then came back here. So
what I was saying while you were gone was that, there's a gentleman who asked me, is learning Portuguese hard? And my answer was, how does that even begin to matter? How does whether or not something is hard matter when it's something that needs to be done? And I do say this with a bit of sexism in my voice, because when a man asks me if something is hard, I immediately think less of him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can listen to a guy talk about how he tried something and failed, and now he's got to try it again, or, that I can listen to. But when I hear an adult man tell me it's hard and let that be a reason he doesn't do something, I immediately think less of him. There was a woman who asked me something. She said, "Why? You come on your channel and sometimes you talk about how," she said, "sometimes you talk about how you just left the gym and you look all beaten up, and you talk about, wow, I just, I squatted, this many plates and I did this today." And she said, "Why do you go to the gym if it's so hard and so painful?" I can accept that question from a woman. And yes, it's sexist, but it didn't bother me, because I don't think women benefit from doing a lot of hard shit. It doesn't make a woman's life better to have scars on her chest and lumps on her head from banging it against the wall. Yes, it's sexist, but that's how I feel. So when this guy asked me, is it hard? It was like, why does it matter? Yes, it's hard. No, it's not. If it's something you need to do, you do it.
I think what was really behind that is fear. That people have a lot of fear around learning a new language. People have a lot of fear about not being able to communicate clearly, especially adults. I think it makes them feel very vulnerable. The idea of going someplace and not being able to be as independent as you're used to being because you can't speak the language. So I think that his fear might have been really couched in that. And instead of saying I'm scared, is it hard? I think that's how I interpret that question a lot of times when it has to do with language.
I don't know, man. I mean, DJ, does anybody ever talk to you about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and ask, is it hard?
Oh, every time someone talks to me, every time someone asks me about it, I talk to them about it all the time, but I always explain. And one thing that I get a lot as well, not so much that is it hard, is when they first start doing it, is like, oh, it's too hard, those type of questions. It's like, well, no one just picks up a chess set, starts playing chess, and is a chess master the next day. Like things take time. Things that are worth doing take time. So it's important to explain to people, especially my students. When someone's not my student, it's a little bit harder to answer those questions. But usually my students, I'm very patient with them, so I'm able to answer those questions. And it's just, yeah, most things in life are hard, especially once we get older. Like nothing's coming easy.
It bothers me because I now wonder how many things in life this guy missed out on.
Yeah.
I wonder how many things he didn't get to do. But at the same time, watch this. I'm glad that I've done certain things that I just found out that they're hating on the notifications. See, this is why I put my things on YouTube as well. I mean, on my Twitter and my Facebook, because apparently they're just, yeah. And you're right.
Yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing as well. Two of the hardest things I've ever done. Learning Thai is also things that I've ever done, but all of these things are necessary. It's not like just because it's hard, I don't have the option to not do it. They have the utmost importance. They're necessary, so I have to do it. And I think that should be the case for most people.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think to kind of pull everyone's perspective together, I think what is fundamentally bothersome about the question, is it hard in this context, is that here's a person that's planning to go to Brazil. And that was the part that was difficult for him to think about and do. Okay, like it's not like a random person in America just asking you, "Hey, is it hard?" And they're just curious, or to that effect. But he is someone who's going, so he's already committed to every other part, and it's just like, oh, okay, is it hard? Now let's take away the benefit of the conversational piece doubt, right? He's just dropping, shooting the nonsense, and let's assume he's actually curious about the difficulty. Yeah, I feel where this is coming from with the idea of people being intimidated and afraid of picking it up, because adults, they just, especially in America, he's American, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mary, sure, we have one of, if not the worst, ears and system for picking up a foreign language in the world. It's atrocious. But this he's got to do it now. He's like, I can't hide from this, because you can hide. Language is unique, right? Because it's the one thing where immediately that you're not doing right. Like you don't really practice is feedback. And it's like there's no real practice in the sense of we're getting ready for real game time. When you're in that country and you got to use it, you got to do it. And I think people are really afraid. People can't even walk up to one another in their same language and start a conversation, let alone in another one. So it is one of the scariest things I think a person will do. With that said, I don't, you got to do it. Wondering if it's hard or not, you got to do it. Like if you said no, it's a piece of cake. What's he gonna do?
But here's where I also want to say something, is that I'm glad it's hard, and this is something one of my mentors said to me a long time ago. He said this of the investment and insurance industry that I retired from a while back when I was 37. He said, "I'm glad that our business is hard. If it wasn't, we wouldn't be rewarded so richly for doing it well." Because I'm glad that there aren't many men that have the courage to do things like learn boxing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, women or men who learn how to sing or learn another language and go to another country. Because those of us that do, we get to be superstars. We get to be superstars.
I'd like to put it out there that it's actually not hard. And I think that what makes it feel hard are our expectations of how we should learn language. Because if you think about it, we all learned English as babies. So it couldn't have been that hard. But there was no expectation that within 3 months or 6 months, we were going to be speaking like our parents. Because that's not the way you learn language. It's not the way you learn language as a child. It's not the way you learn language as an adult. But I think adults have this expectation that they should, within a quick period of time, be able to achieve a level of mastery the way they could do, I don't know, in something that maybe didn't require starting from zero, the way you really do have to start with another language. Like it's kind of the same way, like with jiu-jitsu. If someone expected within 3 months to be at your level of mastery, that's not a realistic expectation. You've got decades of experience and of muscular memory and building skills. And it's the same thing with language. But I think that because we're so fluent in our primary languages, and because we don't remember how many years we went through learning it, we have this expectation that, I should go and I should be able to take Rosetta Stone classes for 6 months and speak. No, you're not going to. Not even if you're a genius in doing everything. A baby listens to its mother tongue day and night for a year before it even says mama. So why do we think that we are going to become fluent in a year? And I think that it's hard when we have that expectation. We take away that expectation and just learn it the way babies do and have fun with it and be okay with making mistakes. It's not hard. We are hardwired for language. It's something that makes us uniquely human.
Well, the other thing about it is, and this is, I'll say that before I say hello to Matrix Escape. Kiki said, I don't think Americans are bad at learning languages. I think we aren't forced to do it to make a living, so we aren't as determined. In a lot of other places in the world, you simply cannot be monolingual. Yeah. No one ever asked if you're okay with learning another language. In order to do business with your neighbors, you have to speak a little bit of their language.
Mm-hmm. True.
You know, Matrix, you want to say hello? Tell them who you are. Can you hear it? There we go.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? My name is Stefan. Name of my platform is Matrix Escape. It's just based off my experiences in Brazil. Been there probably about 20 something times. Just recently, I started this platform, just starting to kind of capture the content. Just, you know, basically my experiences in Brazil. So basically what I can say about it is, it's not easy, just like anything in life. It's just the difficult thing is starting the commitment to actually do it, sticking with it. So I just learned by just being engaged and decided I'm going to do it because I've always wanted to go to Brazil. So I knew eventually I had to learn the language. I did that by getting to know the people and just being engaged. So when you start, you don't know a thing. So you're using Google Translate, excuse me. And so you have to translate their phrase, and then I have to translate my response and send. So I think doing that about 1 million times at the same time, going to visit the country, and visit the people, understanding the different sotakis, it's like I picked up on it. And no, I'm not fluent, but after a while, I started picking up on things. So a person can say a whole sentence, and I would hear certain words that I understood, and I could understand the whole thing as a whole. But it took a little more time to speak it back. But it's just like that. If you just got to put in the work. So, and just like anything else. So I think that comes from a place of fear. Just like Miss Alyssa said, there's a lot of fear involved. You kind of second guess yourself if you start to ask that question.
Did you hear the part where we were talking about what is necessary and what is unnecessary? Because now let me ask you a question. You said it's hard. You said you started learning? Because I started learning before I came, just like with everybody else. I learned a couple of words on Duolingo, but then I discovered Pimsleur, which has been an enormous help. Enormous help. How did you start learning? Because I didn't know you considered it hard.
Like I said, I don't think it's necessarily hard. I think it's just hard as far as just taking the commitment and sticking to it. That's kind of the difficulty of it. And I can't say the word hard, but it is challenging. So just learning a language is challenging, but do you have the commitment and the persistence to stick with it? So you have to find whatever is driving you to learn it. You have to find that for yourself and continue it. And like I said, how I learned, I feel like I didn't take a course. I just feel like I learned naturally. And I just, like I said, in the beginning, I was, talking to a bunch of people, and I would have one person on WhatsApp, and then I'd have like 5 or 6 other people trying to text me at the same time. So I'm constantly engaged. Okay, copy, paste, translate. Okay, my response. And then a lot of time I would just mimic. I could kind of do the same conversation pattern. So I may copy and paste to the next person so it followed a chain like that. Then after a while,
put books on your refrigerator of the same word. So every day you learn geladeira. Yeah. Let me tell you guys something. Why you should follow Matrix Escape. Because when you look at his front page and 2 out of 4 videos are food, that's somebody I can hang out with. Like, we can get down. If 2 out of the 4 videos are about food, yes, we should be out. We should go hang out.
Yeah, so I cover every aspect. It's just as far as the nightlife, the cuisine, the culture, the people. I visited so much, and I said, wow, I'm not all these great experiences and places that I've been. I need to be capturing this content. So when I visited I went last September, and then I just started capturing. I go to the beaches. I did a 3-part video of the Christ the Redeemer statue. So I just started capturing that content. And but like I said, it's just once you start doing that, like how I did it, but it's different when you get there. So it's like then you start engaging in people, and a lot of time Brazilians have a natural habit of talking very fast. So I have to be like, oh, okay. And that actually helped me get better. It's a 2-part process. You have to be engaged, just like when you're learning English. When you used to go to English, like when you used to take English in school and do composition and write and learn, the words and be engaged to learn it. But at the same time, it's a 2-part process. You have to engage in the people and kind of start that dialogue too. So,
well,
but it's always a challenge.
With the whole translate, and this is the tip someone gave me. Someone sends you a message and you use Google Translate to understand what it is, and then you use Google Translate to see your reply. Don't cut and paste it. Say your reply, even if you get the pronunciation wrong. Read it and say the reply.
Right.
But again, it goes back to that. Is it hard? Yes. I just had a friend of mine. She did a video, and I think she's a vegetarian or a vegan. I can't remember which. She went to a restaurant and specifically ordered extra meat.
Mm. You said extra
she got
meat?
The extra and the none mixed up. So they were like, they just wrote it down. She was like, yes, I want extra meat in my dinner.
This kind.
That's normal, right? That's a normal thing. So they were like, okay. And when they sat it down in front of her, listen, anybody who's eaten in Brazil knows that a normal portion out here is close to American style portions. Like they do not mind giving you some extra beef. They sat it down and she looked back, and then she looked, and then she looked back, and she had the common sense to realize that if somebody made a mistake, it was her. So she ended up buying 3 dinners. One was her vegetarian, and one was a regular dinner with extra meat. But do you think she learned?
That's par for the course, man. That's the best way to learn is by making mistakes.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing. When you're good at something, you've taken so many losses. I mean, DJ, I am nowhere near the master of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as you are, but I can tell you, the number of beatings I took before I went to my first tournament in Naga and won my first place swords. I came from old school Cobra Kai, Mark Lyman, Sim Go, in the gym in Vegas at 100 degrees at night, go outside, throw up, and go back in the gym. Those kind of ass whooping. So when I got to the gym and I'm like, it's air conditioned in here. I'm wrestling somebody that looks like he's not as scared as I am. I was glad to beat him, but I wasn't scared to take a beating in class. A lot of people are afraid to take that beating. They're afraid to. I know people who want to be singers like you, yet they're afraid to record something and actually just put it on the internet to see if people like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like what Alyssa said, as far as the expectations go, I have one student now who has progressed faster than most white belts that I've ever coached. But his expectations, what he wants to achieve from jiu-jitsu, he's so hard on himself that he's a detriment to himself. Like if he could just get out of his own way, he would be able to progress a lot faster. Like to the point where if he gets submitted in class by a blue or purple belt, like he's a white belt. If he gets submitted in class by a higher belt, he's hitting the mat, screaming, but it's everyone in the gym is like, yo, man, I don't want to train with this. I don't want to train with this dude. This dude is crazy. It's like,
he's a crybaby.
And I'm trying to help him. It's like, oh man, it's like he's not that he's crazy. He's just really hard himself. But people don't really want to hear that when they're coming to the gym to train jiu-jitsu. So it's if we could get lower our own expectations and not lower our expectations, but just like remove them. Like we're going to improve the speed that we're going to improve. There's no reason to think we're going to be able to do it within a few months. It's just unrealistic.
But some people expect that, or what they do is they like to see someone at the end of the process. They watch a highlight video of Ed, or a highlight video of DJ Jackson, or look at Lisa on YouTube sing her heart out, and they compare where they are now with where we've been, but they don't know about all the losses we took. And they don't understand that you have to do it. There is no shortcut. You can't. As I rapidly approach maturity in life, I realize you can't cheat the game. I'm so glad I did things the hard way, because I know a lot of guys thought they could cheat the game, and it never worked. It could work in the short term, but eventually it caught up with them, especially when they met up with somebody who chose not to try to cheat the game.
Yeah,
you can't jump from here to there.
I think there's a cultural and a generational aspect to it as well, because when you think about where we are culturally now, most people don't share the process. Most people, they're going to show you the final product. And even things like The Voice and all of these shows, like reality shows where people are becoming famous singing or dancing or whatever, you don't really see the years of work that they put in. You don't see all the times that they messed up, and people have this idea that you're just supposed to be able to get up there and do it. So I think in a way, and I do think that's generational, because I think our generation, when we weren't bombarded with all this media, you just had to go do it. And in the process of doing it with real people in real time, you saw, oh, okay, so-and-so's been doing this 5 years. I remember when he started, but you're not going to see that on Instagram or YouTube usually.
And just to elaborate on your point, it's we want it now. And just the first time I visited Brazil, I like I said, I was doing I had this, this girl that I was talking to every night. And I'm thinking okay, I know enough. I'm ready. And I get down there and I get to the airport. I get to the airport in Sao Paulo and I rent my car. I tell the gentleman, I say, I need a GPS now. And I'm saying, okay, the car's got GPS in it. So, okay, good. So when I get in the car, and the person that I had to see was another 2 hours away from the airport in Campinas and Vargem Grande do Sul. So I'm okay, I'm in the car. So the GPS doesn't come on yet. So I asked the gentleman, I said, my Portuguese, I didn't know what I thought I knew. And I said, I'm basically where's the highway? And the guy said, aí, whatever. So I'm all right. So I get on the highway, and 15 minutes into the highway, I'm this GPS doesn't come on. And I'm in a whole different country the first time. All the signs are in Portuguese. I couldn't turn around if I wanted to. So I was oh my goodness. So I had to stop at the side of the road. And I was all right, think. But luckily, the GPS, there was a GPS in the car. I didn't know it at the time because I didn't turn the radio on. But when I turned it on the monitor, I was oh, it's got a GPS. So I was able to type in the address. And even though it's for Portuguese, I don't care. I just follow that arrow. When that little alert came up, ding, turn here. Oh, I knew. So I was wow. And that gave me a whole different perspective and profound respect. Okay, I need to. I'm not as serious as I don't know as much as I need to. I need to buckle down a little more. And that's when you get to knowing the people and engage in them, and shout out to them, because it takes patience for a person that doesn't that can't speak it. So a lot of time they'll stop and they'll take a breath when they've explained it to you 3 or 4 times, and they'll be okay, I'm gonna explain it again. And after a while, going 25 times, it's just and then you go in different regions where there's different sotaque, because a person from Salvador Bahia talks different than a person in Sao Paulo.
Very different.
So
accent.
just understanding that.
The word sotaque is accent.
Just like in America, the North and the Southern is different. It's just like that.
So let me say this real quick. One, salute, because the fact that you had the stones to drive out here, I'm not that kind. I'm not built like that. I'm not built for that game. That's not for me. I would get my Uber.
It's not for the faint of heart driving here.
The way those motorcycle guys go in between cars out here, listen, I consider myself a tough guy, but I don't have a heart for that.
Oh man.
So let me address.
They got a death wish when they drive down there.
Yeah. Let me address a comment. Someone named Me Myself said, I want to visit Brazil. However, I got discouraged last night when I saw or sat in on a live stream that was titled Brazil, the Color Caste System. The gist of the conversation was that Black people have it bad. So let's do this. We are going to have that as maybe another conversation, but I'm going to say something and I want everyone to feel free to agree or disagree or whatever. I don't know who you are or where you're from, and you don't have to say so in the comments if you want to stay, anonymous. If you are a Black American, you have survived the worst system for Black Americans in the entire world. You have nothing to fear. 2, there is no place where it's going to be easy for you to be Black. I have plenty of videos about this. If you want to look into my, if you subscribe and then click search, look up America, look up United States, look up Black. I can safely say to you, if you are a Black American, you'll be fine anywhere else in the world you go. And I've lived in 15 countries. I do not say this with sarcasm. If anybody on the panel wants to give me some pushback, if any of the Black Americans on the channel from 4 different places want to give me some pushback, I'm here to listen.
I don't have any pushback for you. In fact, I'll tell you a story. We were walking through we were in downtown Lisbon, and we stumbled on a goddamn Black Lives,
right?
Lisbon, Portugal, and we stumbled on a Black Lives Matter march because the police is out there whooping ass in the hood outside of it. Because out in Europe, the hoods are outside the city and not in the city. Vice versa. They out there just beating it. People. I mean, they're not shooting people. Thank goodness. But it's an issue. It's an issue to the point where they're holding rallies. The difference is when they hold rallies, they're holding up the flag of Mozambique and Angola and Cape Verde, but the place where the Black people come from over there. But yeah, I mean, it's still like they're not shooting them. So like it's a different system. Overall, just I'm not going to say better. No, it is better. I mean, if you're here in the United States, and the people who don't know me, I mean, I am very. I listen to the argument before I jump and say it was race related, and a lot of times that doesn't make people happy. But I hear things that are, and I can't deny that, and that, people thought I was one way, and I'm like, no, man, that shit was wrong. Some of it, you understand how it got to that point, but some shit is wrong. And when I was reading some of the stories out when I was there, and seeing comparatively how things are done here, no, if you made it here, if you're in America, I mean, at the very least, Europe is going to be okay for you. That's where I have experience. You'll be way better in Europe. I don't know how it is down in
Brazil. What you said about separating things that may or may not be race related, and you and I have both, had a lot of dirt thrown our way because we refuse to always jump on the race bandwagon. But 10 years as a financial professional opened my eyes to money in a way that is, 1, heartbreaking, but 2, allowed me to retire early. I tell people all the time, sometimes it's not because you're Black, sometimes it's because you're poor. And people don't like to hear that reality, but it's like, it's not you being Black that's holding you back, it's you not having any money or education.
I've said several times.
That's very much the case in Brazil as well.
Go ahead and expand on that.
I've said several. Oh, you want her? Oh yeah, I got you. Yeah,
do you want to finish up? I'll go after you.
I was just gonna say that I've said several times to people that sometimes it's racism, but sometimes you're just being an asshole, man. And like, I gotta hear the story before I immediately jump on your side. Now, I mean, that's I'll close that out.
I think in the case of Brazil, you really can't. You can't look at racism here without looking at classism, and I think that that's something that sometimes when African Americans come here, they'll feel like there's not racism because they're not experiencing it. But if you come here as an American, you're automatically elite. It doesn't matter if you have money or not. You are perceived to be someone who has money. You have the ability to leave your country and come here. You are going to be seen as elite. So you are not going to go through the same things that a Black Brazilian would go through, especially a Black Brazilian who is also poor. So it's not as black and white here. I wouldn't say it's better. I would say it's probably a little worse just because the police are way less accountable than they are in the States. But you cannot detach the color You get a color from economic status here. If you are a Black Brazilian who's poor, you're going to have it much worse off than a Black Brazilian who's rich. If you're a Black Brazilian who's rich, you're still Black. It's kind of like in the States as well. But the color thing, like especially in Bahia, where it's 85% people of African descent, not everyone here is going to consider themselves Black. And if you are like, I don't know, like the color of Matrix, and you have money, here you can pass for white. And so you can get out of being experiencing what you experience as a Black man because you have money, and you can, with that money, pass for a higher class.
Dear sister, I would also say people darker than any of us that I know here in Sao Paulo, and I say this not as a classist issue, but Sao Paulo is a wealthy city. You know, I know people as dark as I am who are Black and have some money, and they get away with the same things, because one of the things that happens is a lot of it is where you live. For example, I've had people ask me, well, have you ever gone here in Brazil or in Sao Paulo? And I go, no, why would I go there? And it's like, well, I saw all these cool pictures. I said, but that's in a poor area. Well, don't you want to go there? I didn't live in poverty in America. Why would I do it in another country? I don't do poverty porn. Like, why would I go to projects in another country? That's degrading to them and disingenuous of me. But I know some Americans who have done what I call gone native, who have decided they want to look, dress, act, and behave like a Black Brazilian who was born here, and then get angry when they're treated like a Black Brazilian who was born here with no opportunity. And then they have to say,
I did that when I was here my first 2 years, because there were not many African Americans here, and I could pass. And once I had about 2 to 3 years of Portuguese, it was good enough where if I didn't speak a lot, people didn't know I was American, because I wanted to understand the experience of Black Brazilians here, you know. And I was treated differently. I'm treated differently now if I don't open my mouth, you know, too much. You know, once people figure out I'm American, it automatically shifts. But I don't like, for me, I felt like I needed to understand that experience so that I didn't put myself above it without having that awareness. I felt like that, for me, would have been a slight. That would have been disrespectful to Black Brazilians.
If you experienced it in the United States, you do know what it's like. You already know.
It was, but this was just for me. I didn't want to come in. I just felt like I wanted to understand what my Black brothers and sisters were experiencing here. And it is not exactly the same as in the States. It's a little different. There are different shades of it. And there's a lot of complexity to it. It's not, I think there's more complexity to it here than in the States, actually.
I think we're used to it in the United States. It's kind of like language. People always argue over what language is more or less.
Killed for it.
Go ahead. What'd you say?
People are getting killed here.
And again, it's that whole whatever you're used to doesn't seem as bad as it is somewhere else. Something that I'm a big advocate of is that all Black people need therapy. Because what you don't realize as a Black person until you've lived outside of the pressure of the United States is that everything we've gone through has been so dramatic and traumatic that it seems normal. It's like an abusive parent. If you've grown up being abused, you don't know it's abuse until you are around people who didn't. You know, and that's something but I don't want to go too far away from our central conceit, you know, as we come up on an hour here. What I do want to say is that going back to that whole central premise is, I think all of us have chosen to do something extremely difficult and reap the benefits of it. So when I hear people say things like, when I hear men say, is that difficult? I already brand them as slightly less than, and I look at them and I realize they're probably not going to go as far in life as one of us. You know, and so what do we do? Because I was kind of stuck, and I looked at him and I said, and I may have lost a client. I admit that sometimes I'm not a listen, I tell people all the time, a man has no place making decisions with his emotions. Am I perfect? No. I was like, why would it matter? If you have to do it, I can get you the resources to learn the language. But if you want to come to Brazil, if you say, oh, I love the weather and the food and I want to be part of the culture and I want to learn how to dance, you will have to learn how to speak the language. And if it's hard, I say, assume it's the hardest thing you've ever done. Is that going to stop you? course, that's probably where I made.
Oh, sorry. Just like my first experience, like when I got there and I'm stuck on the highway and didn't really know as much as I thought, feeling that pressure and that heat. I'm sure people think about that, like wanting to go, and they think of situations like that, and that may deter them. But like I said, it's going to be a challenge. It may be hard, but is that going to stop you? So, I mean,
whenever I read or hear about someone in my social circle saying they had a terrible time in Brazil, the first test that I give is, oh, well, how fluent is your Portuguese? What were you dealing with at the time? It's always someone who wasn't even conversational, and they blame the bad experience they had on the country and not the fact that they couldn't even go to a restaurant and learn how to order a bowl of beans and rice without screwing that up. And oh, it's such a terrible place, and they don't have diversity of food. They have plenty of diversity of food here. Telematrix, there is more food options here. If you don't know how to order it, you'll just be eating beans and rice every day.
right.
I can barely speak Portuguese. Anytime that I'm at a gym and I'm teaching, I need someone to help translate. When I try to speak Portuguese, everyone at the gym laughs at me, and for a while I didn't even know what they were laughing at. But I was pronouncing a lot of the words wrong. But I was trying. But it was all love, you know. And I have absolutely never had a bad time in Brazil. I've been to Manaus, Rio, Sao Paulo. Manaus wasn't a bad time. It was just so freaking hot. Like that part of the jungle was
Manaus is one of my favorite places.
I love it too, man. I love it up there, man. But it was so hot, and especially I had to do a competition up there. It was one of the hard. You're gonna yell at me, YusefWateef. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, man. Competing in that heat, but I ended up winning the competition because absolutely every one of us was dealing with the same heat. We were all dealing with the same heat, and it was. I had my big Brazilian friend Otavio Natali. There was one air conditioned room in the entire event.
Wait, Octavio, you mean from Guigo's gym?
Yes.
So people, he said my big Brazilian friend. That wasn't a metaphor. This dude is I had the pleasure of rolling with him once. It was just totally unfair. I mean, I signed up for it, but I was like, this is not even. How did this happen to me? Why did I do this? Why did I do this? Because he was doing things you shouldn't be able to technically do, but when you're that big, you can cheat.
Every time, he's the only person that I've had where my instructor would say, DJ, grapple tata, and I'll look at him and like, why? Like, why? Like he is that big, and he's also that good. But he's a real beautiful human being, one of the nicest people I know. He went down to coach me, and there's one air conditioned room, and I kept trying to go into that air conditioned room, and he stood in front of it and kept pushing me out of it because he knew that if I went into the AC, my body would lock up and I wouldn't be able to compete properly.
Yeah.
So everyone else was going into the AC at the end of their matches, chilling, relaxing, and then he just stood in front of the door and would just push me out. He's like, nope. And
you know what? As we wrap this up, I'll tell you something I didn't understand for a very long time. One of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments I went to in the United States, where I lost, but I was learning because I'm not afraid to learn something hard. After matches, this coach would put blankets around his fighters in their gi. Because you don't know when his next match is going to be. It might be 45 minutes, and they will just give him some water, and they'll put a blanket on. He would just be in there hot. But they didn't have to warm up. Listen, I got business to handle tonight. We need to have another conversation because we went down some roads here that I want to give full and proper attention to. I'm hoping all of you can come back. For anybody who came in late, go back up the stream. I've given everybody links to be able to connect with everyone here, and I hope that you do. And I want to say thank you to everybody. I'm going to click end broadcast, but you guys stick around. I'm going to say some things to you at the end, all right?
Hey, thanks for having us on, Yusef.
yeah, thank you.
All right, everybody. Bye-bye.